The order comes at 4:30 in the morning. Not a bugle, not a bell, just a series of cornu horn signals that every man in camp has memorized since week 2 of training. Because week 2 of training is when you learn that not knowing what the horn means has consequences. Pack your tent, strike camp, fall in, march. You are wearing 60 Roman pounds of equipment. That is roughly 44 modern pounds. You are carrying a pack, 2 wooden stakes for tonight's palisade, a pickaxe, a saw, 3 days of rations, your scutum shield, 2 pile of javelins, a gladius, a dagger, and your helmet, which is on your head because there is nowhere else to put it. Your name is Marcus, or Lucius, or Gaius, because Rome did not have a very creative approach to naming children. You are about to walk 20 Roman miles. That is approximately 30 kilometers. You will do this today. You will do it again tomorrow. You have been doing it for somewhere between your first week and your 25th year of service. Depending on where we are in your story, you are a Roman legionary. And this video is about what that actually looked like from the inside. At 4:30 in the morning, when the horn sounds and you are already putting on your helmet, speed running through who these men were, because the horn sounded 10 minutes ago and we should be moving. Roman legionaries, Roman citizens. Day, aged 17 to 46. Physically sound. No criminal record. No debt. Who had just agreed to give Rome 25 years of their lives. In exchange, regular pay. Regular food, regular violence, and the legal inability to marry for the entire duration. This was considered a good deal. The contract is 25 years, no marriage, and possible death, recruit, plus citizenship if you're an auxiliary who doesn't have it yet. Okay, welcome to the Legion. The sacramentum, the military oath, was the most serious legal commitment in Roman society. Breaking it wasn't desertion. It was something closer to a cosmic violation. Men who broke the oath weren't just punished. They were considered to have fundamentally disordered their relationship with Rome, with the gods, and with reality. No pressure, speed-running basic training, which lasted 4 months and was essentially an ancient CrossFit program designed by someone who had a personal grudge against human comfort. Run 18 miles every morning in armor. Swim rivers in full equipment. Build a camp from scratch until it takes the correct amount of time. 10,000 sword strikes against a 6-foot wooden post before you touch a real gladius. March in formation until the formation is perfect. Then march faster. They had to hit a wooden post 10,000 times before they got a real sword, 10,000 minimum. The Romans believed in repetition the way modern people believe in supplements, fervently and with results. Then equipment, and here we meet Gaius Marius. Marius was a general. In 107 BC, he made one decision that every legionary would quietly resent for centuries. Before Marius, armies had supply trains, hundreds of wagons hauling everyone's gear. Marius looked at this and said, "Slow." He made each legionary carry his own equipment, all of it. You want us to carry our own camp, your own camp, your own rations, your own tools, your own stakes. This seems like a lot. You'll get used to it. Will we? No. But you'll do it anyway. soldiers started calling themselves Muli Mariani, Marius's mules. He took it as a compliment. They did not mean it as one. A standard day on campaign. Walk with me. 0500. The cornu sounds. Experienced soldiers are already awake. They've learned that the horn is not an alarm. It's a confirmation. You eat breakfast while you pack. Breakfast is grain porridge, olive oil, if available, and Posca. What is Posca? Posca is water mixed with vinegar. That's the entire description. Water, vinegar, mixed together. That is the official beverage of the Roman military. Why would anyone choose that? Because it works. Vinegar kills bacteria. In an era before germ theory existed, Posca was keeping soldiers alive while their enemies were getting dysentery from untreated river water. The Romans didn't know why it worked. They knew it worked. And that distinction, empirical observation, without theoretical understanding, is possibly the most Roman thing in this entire script. So the Roman military accidentally invented functional medicine, and it tasted terrible. Drink your Posca. Fall in 0600. The column moves. 5,000 men in formation, a full legion plus auxiliaries. The standard pace covered about 24 Roman miles in 5 hours, with a 10-minute rest break every hour. In a hurry. Rome could push to 30 miles. The record for a Roman forced march is somewhere around 36 miles in a day. That is 58 kilometers. Done once. Under Caesar, in Spain. After which the soldiers presumably all agreed to never bring it up again. The roads helped. If you've ever wondered why all roads lead to Rome became a saying, it's because the Romans built approximately 250,000 miles of road, specifically for this moving legions fast. Straight, slightly crowned for drainage, gravel foundation, paved surface, milestones every Roman mile, way stations every 15 miles. The Roman road network was the most sophisticated transportation infrastructure the Western world would see until the 19th century. They built 250,000 miles of road so soldiers could march faster. Primarily, yes. Also, trade, communication, general administration. But the baseline use case was if a province revolts. A legion can be there before the revolt has time to become a habit. Roads as preemptive counterinsurgency. That's either genius or terrifying. It's very Roman for it to be both. 1400. The column stops. The camp prefect selects a site elevated. Near water, defensibile. Large enough? He produces a measuring tool called a groma, drives a stake into the center of the future camp, and within minutes has the entire grid laid out on the ground. Now, every man who just marched 20 miles picks up his pickaxe. I'm sorry, every man who just marched 20 miles picks up his pickaxe. They walked 20 miles and then built a fort. Every night on the march. Yes, a full fort. Ditch first, typically 2 to 3 meters wide. 1 to 2 meters deep. In a full rectangle around the camp perimeter. The dirt goes into an earthen rampart on the inside. Into the rampart go the 2 wooden stakes every soldier was carrying. Continuous palisade. 4 gates. Then a full street grid inside Praetorium at the center. Tents in organized rows by Contubernium. Granary. Medical station. officers' quarters. Same layout every time. In every province. In every century of the empire. Why always the same layout? Because if you wake up at 3 in the morning and need to run to the East Gate, you need to know where the East Gate is without thinking. Every man and every legion knew the camp layout the way you know your own apartment. In the dark, in a panic, under attack. The standardized camp was not bureaucratic obsession. It was cognitive load management applied to warfare. 2,000 years before anyone had a phrase for that. This is making me feel bad about how disorganized my apartment is. Your apartment doesn't need to repel cavalry raids. Usually, the camp took roughly 4 hours to build. After 4 hours of construction, after 5+ hours of marching, the men ate dinner. Main meal, grain as pulse, thick porridge, or hardtack, bacon, olive oil, legumes, vinegar, salt, approximately 3,000 calories per day. No significant meat, no exceptions. That's it? Porridge and salt pork forever? That's it. They built an empire that stretched from Scotland to Mesopotamia on porridge and salt pork. Then guard duty. The night was divided into 4 watches of 3 hours each. Every man rotated through. Your longest possible uninterrupted sleep on full rotation, 3 hours. For months at a time, 3 hours of sleep a night. Then 20 miles. And then build a fort. How were these people real? They were very, very angry and very, very tired. It turns out that is an excellent combination for conquering things. The Legion at its best was something genuinely difficult to describe to someone who hasn't seen a well-run military unit work. 5,000 men, each knowing exactly their job, each trusting that the 4,999 men around them also knew exactly their job. The food was bad. The sleep was bad. The marching was brutal. The machine worked. Rome, at imperial peak, maintained 30 legions simultaneously. Roughly 150,000 career professional soldiers, plus auxiliaries and support, all running on the same system, in the same standardized camps, eating the same porridge, drinking the same Posca, building the same fort every night from Hadrian's Wall to the Syrian desert. There is one moment inside this machine I keep returning to. Not a battle. Not a triumph, just a man. At the end, legionary service lasted 25 years. A man who joined at 18 was discharged at 43 if he survived. Disease took more men than combat. Dysentery, malaria, infected wounds, the cold of a German winter and the heat of a North African summer. A man who reached onesta missio honorable discharge had outlasted most of the men he had served beside. On the day of discharge, the veteran received a diploma, 2 bronze tablets wired together, stamped with his name, his legion, his years of service, and the rights he was now entitled to by law. If he was an auxiliary who had not previously held Roman citizenship, these tablets made him a citizen. Surviving diplomas are among the most personal documents to reach us from the Roman world's small, heavy, engraved with the legal language of an empire, acknowledging that a man had kept his end of an agreement for a quarter of a century. His name may be recorded in one of those diplomas, or in a grave inscription, or nowhere at all. Most legionaries left no written record beyond their service. What he experienced at the moment of discharge is not in any document, because the Romans who wrote history were not much interested in the interior lives of discharged soldiers. But the experience can be reconstructed from what we know of what his life had been. He had marched 20 miles a day for 25 years. His body had absorbed that rhythm so completely that the absence of it would feel wrong for years afterward. His feet, calloused past ordinary sensation, would still find the spacing of the legion's march pace when he walked to market. His hands, which had set 2 wooden palisade stakes into an earthen rampart every evening for 25 years, would reach for a tool that was no longer there. He would wake before dawn out of habit, lie in a bed that was softer than anything he had known since adolescence, and feel unsettled by the silence where the horn should be. The Contubernium, the 8-man tent group, the basic unit of legionary life, was the structure around which 25 years had been organized. 8 men shared a leather tent, shared rations, shared the labor of building camp and breaking it each morning. They knew each other's sleep rhythms, eating habits, what each man did when he was afraid. This was not friendship in the civilian sense. It was something more structural than friendship, built not from affinity, but from proximity and necessity and the shared daily reality of everything being difficult in identical ways for a very long time. Discharge dissolved the Contubernium. The men scattered to land grants in the provinces where they had served, to home regions they had left at 17, to cities they had passed through on campaign and remembered what had been the most permanent structure in the veteran's life, more permanent than any building, more permanent than any relationship he had been legally permitted to have, simply ended. The 8 became 8 separate men with 8 separate addresses and no particular reason to be in the same place. Archaeological evidence suggests veterans struggled with this dissolution more than the written sources acknowledge. Former soldiers clustered in communities near other veterans in the provinces where they had served. They formed collegia, social and burial clubs that preserved the rhythms of military life in civilian form. They organized themselves around each other because they had organized themselves around each other for 25 years and did not know another way to be organized. The diploma was warm in his hand. Bronze holds warmth longer than you expect. The letters stamped into it confirmed 25 years of existence within the machine of Rome, that he had been there, that Rome acknowledged he had been there. He knew the march pace. He knew the camp layout. He knew the taste of Posca at 0500 before 20 miles of road. He knew the weight of the pack, the specific ache of the 4th hour of marching when the body has accepted what is happening and stops arguing. He just did not know. At 43, what else he was. The Contubernium thing has been sitting with me for a week. 8 men in one leather tent for 25 years. Then nothing. I need a moment. Let's hear from a sponsor and then get back to the parts where things went wrong, which in Roman military history is a long and eventful list. Things that went wrong. Speed running through them. Disease. The #1 killer of Roman soldiers was not combat. It was dysentery, malaria, typhoid, infected wounds, and what ancient sources call camp fever, probably a rotating cast of infectious diseases that thrived wherever large groups of people lived in close quarters for extended periods, which is what a legion was. The Romans had military hospitals and permanent camps valetudinaria, with trained medical staff, medici, who understood wound cleaning, bone setting, and basic surgery. They did not understand germ theory. The hospitals worked anyway. They had functional military medicine without knowing what bacteria were. They made anesthetics from henbane and mandrake, cleaned wounds with wine and vinegar, performed amputations with mortality rates acceptable by early 20th century standards. Yes, this happened. Decimation. If a unit behaved with sufficient cowardice, abandoned their post, ran from battle, failed in a way that shamed the legion, the punishment was decimation. The unit was divided into groups of 10 by lot. 9 drew lots. The one who drew short was beaten to death by the other 9, with clubs, in front of the rest of the legion. That is, real. Applied rarely. The nuclear option. The threat alone was considered sufficient deterrent most of the time. The threat of being beaten to death by your 9 best friends was a behavior management strategy. It was a different time. Supply failures. When supply lines broke down on extended campaigns, the diet dropped from porridge and bacon to whatever could be foraged or honestly appropriated from local populations. Soldiers on extended bad supply wrote home. The Vindolanda tablets, real writing tablets preserved at a fort on Hadrian's Wall, include letters from real soldiers, requests for socks, underwear, food from home, money, and more socks. One letter specifically requests hunting nets because the garrison has been eating whatever they can catch, and it is not going well. Roman soldiers on Hadrian's Wall were writing letters home asking for socks. In the 2nd century AD, the socks were for the cold. The cold was constant. The letters are some of the most human documents to survive from antiquity. Mutinies. Roman soldiers were paid. Not well, but regularly when the system worked. When emperors were weak or treasuries empty or the bureaucracy collapsed, pay was late. 3 legions on the Rhine mutinied in 14 AD immediately after Augustus died because they were owed back pay and suspected Tiberius wouldn't honor it. Tiberius sent his son Drusus to resolve the situation. Drusus gave a speech, distributed some money, and got extremely lucky when a lunar eclipse occurred at exactly the right moment. The soldiers took it as a divine bad omen and returned to their tents. The Roman military was briefly stabilized by an astronomical coincidence. Roman history contains multitudes. The system that made the legion work was also what made it fragile. 25 years of service worked only as long as Rome could guarantee what came at the end: the diploma, the land grant, the pension. When the empire was stable 1st and 2nd centuries AD, it could. When the 3rd century arrived and emperors started being murdered on a near monthly basis, currency was debased, supply chains fractured, and provinces were cut off. The guarantees became unreliable. Soldiers who no longer trusted the end of the contract started making different calculations. The discipline built into the legion over 2 centuries by Marius, by Augustus, by generations of centurions with vine staffs and iron memories required. At its foundation, that Rome would hold up its end of the agreement. When Rome stopped holding up its end, the discipline loosened. The legion of the late empire was a different organism from the legion of Augustus. Same name, shorter service terms, lower physical standards, less insistence on the standardized camp that had been the operational backbone of the whole system. They kept calling it a legion. They kept calling it a legion. The word stayed. The thing changed. This is the structural irony of Roman military history. The same 25-year commitment that built the empire required a stable, honest empire to sustain it. The more the empire needed the legion, the less it could provide what the legion needed to remain what it was. The loop closed on itself. The last Western legions didn't dissolve in one catastrophic battle. They dissolved the way the Contubernium dissolved at Discharge, gradually. The men scattered. The structure stopped. And what had been the most organized military force in Western history became something else without any single moment when it happened. The roads still exist. Not all of them time and agriculture have worked. But stretches of Roman roads survive across Britain, France, Spain, Italy, North Africa, the Middle East. Some are still in use. Some are still the straightest route between 2 points because the Romans surveyed for that and they were good at it. The castra became cities: Chester, Lancaster, Winchester, Gloucester, the Castor, and Chester. Suffixes across the former empire carry the word for military camp into the present. The standardized camp grid that every legionary memorized became the blueprint for Roman urban planning, which became the blueprint for European cities, which is why historic downtown areas in former Roman territory have a suspiciously organized quality around the center. The Contubernium 8 men who know each other completely and operate as one is still the basic unit of most modern military forces. The squad. Different word. Same insight. The smallest effective unit of organized violence is a group of men small enough to know each other's names. Tent assignments. And what each man does when he is afraid. They marched 20 miles a day. They ate porridge. They drank vinegar water. They built a fort every single night. They gave 25 years and received a piece of bronze that said, "You were here." The machine acknowledges you. Comment question. Rome maintained 30 legions, 150,000 professional soldiers to control an empire of roughly 60 million people. Per capita. Was Rome's military bigger or smaller than you'd expect? And the real question, considering the Posca worked, the standardized camp worked, and the 25-year system built an empire that lasted 500 years, was the porridge worth it? If you want to know what happened when the legion actually fought the formations, the tactics, what Hannibal exploited, and what Augustus fixed, that video is coming. Subscribe if you want to be there when it does. You watched a video about military logistics and came out knowing about Posca, Muli Mariani, the Contubernium, 250,000 miles of road, and an anonymous veteran holding a warm piece of bronze at age 43. That's either a very efficient use of your time or a very inefficient one. Either way, it was worth it. Yeah, it was.